You've been told your whole life that the weed killer sprayed on our modern food supply is, well, perfectly safe.
Right, yeah, that it's harmless to us.
Exactly, because human cells just do not possess the specific biological pathway that it targets. And technically, that is completely true.
It is true, yeah. But there's a huge catch.
A massive catch. Because what they didn't tell you is that 54% of the bacteria keeping you alive, digesting your food, or regulating your immune system, they actually have that exact pathway.
They do. And it is the ultimate invisible injury. We are talking about a continuous stealth assault on the very microbes that regulate your cellular energy, and it's all just masquerading as a harmless agricultural convenience.
Yeah, which is wild to think about. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we are handing you the blueprints to really become the architect of your own recovery. We're looking at two major frameworks for independent healing.
Right, one physical and one internal.
Exactly. We are going to explore the mechanical sprint of fixing a physical injury right in your living room, no extra equipment needed. And then we're going to transition to the systemic marathon of rebooting your actual cellular energy and, defending your gut from modern toxins.
It's all about giving you agency. It's about distinguishing between that acute sprint and the chronic marathon, empowering you to take control from the outside in and the inside out.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the mechanical side first. You step off a curb, wrong, your ankle rolls, and suddenly you're dealing with a localized kinetic dysfunction.
A classic sprain, yeah.
Right. And for decades, the immediate response has been the classic RICE-E protocol. So rest, ice, compression, elevation.
The gold standard of first aid.
Yeah, but let's skip the basic lecture here. You already know to put a bag of frozen peas on a swollen joint. But let's look at the actual biology of what you're doing to your body in that critical 24 to 48-hour window. Treating a sprain is a lot like dealing with a leaky pipe under your sink. First, you have to shut off the water, which is the rest and the ice, and then you have to patch the leak with compression and elevation.
That is a great way to look at it, because when you suffer a soft tissue injury, like a sprain or a minor tear, your body's immediate biological response is to flood that damaged area with fluid.
Just massive swelling.
Exactly, fluid and inflammatory mediators. So by applying cold therapy, and a quick crucial tip here, always wrap the ice in a towel so you don't get an ice burn.
Oh, right. Direct ice on skin is a terrible idea.
Yeah, it causes real tissue damage. But by applying that cold for, say, 15 to 20 minutes every 2 to 3 hours, you induce local vasoconstriction.
Which means shrinking the blood vessels.
Right. Exactly. You are physically shrinking the blood vessels in the surrounding tissue to limit internal bleeding and reduce edema. Edema is that massive accumulation of fluid that causes that really severe stiff swelling.
And then you add the compression and the elevation to physically manage where that fluid actually goes.
Right.
So you use a basic elastic bandage, wrapping it snugly, but, not so tight that it causes numbness or tingling.
Very important distinction.
Yeah, you create external mechanical support to physically stop the fluid from pooling there. And then elevating the limb leverages gravity. You just prop it up on a few pillows so it's above the level of your heart.
Which is brilliant because it facilitates venous and lymphatic drainage. It cuts down that intense hydrostatic pressure that makes a sprained ankle just throb the second you try to stand up.
Right. And obviously there are red flags where you need to ditch the self-care and just see a doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you hear an audible pop or if there's visible deformity.
Or if there's an absolute inability to bear any weight at all, or sudden numbness and coldness in your toes. Those are surgical red flags.
But assuming it's a standard sprain, the RICE method stops a minor tear from becoming a full rupture. But wait, I have to challenge this, though.
Okay, go for it.
I've been hearing a lot lately in sports medicine circles that we shouldn't actually ice injuries anymore. Like, is RICE totally outdated now?
Well, it's a really nuanced conversation. There has been a major modern shift toward what sports medicine calls the Peace and Love Protocol.
Peace and love.
Yeah, it's an acronym. The medical community realized that using cold therapy for too long, like keeping a joint iced for days and days after the initial injury, it can actually stall the natural inflammatory process.
Because we always think of inflammation as the bad guy, right?
We do, but it is an absolute biological necessity for tissue repair. Inflammation brings the macrophages and healing cells directly to the damaged site to clean up the dead tissue and lay down new fibers.
So if you ice it for too long, You are essentially freezing the repair crew in place.
Right.
Like they just can't get to the job site.
Precisely. If you keep the temperature artificially low, the repair cells simply cannot access the damaged tissue.
Wow. Okay.
So ice is still phenomenal for immediate pain relief and controlling that massive initial swelling in the first few hours. It's still the first aid gold standard for that sprint. But once you get past that initial 48-hour window, you have to back off the ice.
Got it. So the danger of icing an ankle too long is that you freeze the inflammatory healing process.
Exactly.
But what happens when your body is stuck in a state of chronic, unending inflammation? Like an injury you can't just put an ice pack on.
Now we're moving from a localized mechanical trauma to a continuous systemic insult. We're shifting from the physical RACE protocol to the systemic RISE framework for your internal environment.
Because you know when you twist your ankle right, you feel it immediately.
You definitely feel it.
But this is a totally different kind of trauma. And the primary modern insult driving this invisible chronic inflammation is glyphosate.
The active ingredient in widespread herbicides.
Right, like Roundup. And we touched on this at the very beginning, the myth of the shikimate pathway.
Yeah, for years, glyphosate has been marketed as safe for humans based on a biological loophole. It targets the shikimate pathway to kill weeds. And since human cells don't possess this pathway, they said it couldn't harm us.
Right, but 54% of our core human gut species do possess it.
They absolutely rely on it to synthesize essential amino acids and survive.
So what does this all mean? Well, it means every time you eat non-organic wheat or corn or soy, these everyday foods are basically acting as delivery vehicles for a stealth injury.
A daily dose of trauma to your internal ecosystem?
Yeah. And the toxicity is actually multiplied, right? Because commercial formulations like MON 52276, they use these things called coformulants.
It's the adjuvants, yes.
And those could be up to 1,000 times more toxic than just the isolated glyphosate alone.
This raises an important question, though. What happens to the gut when you introduce that level of toxicity?
I'm guessing nothing good.
No, it creates a massive biological void. As your good bacteria die off, you can't just rest an intestinal barrier the way you rest a sprained ankle.
Because nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. So opportunistic pathogens that are actually highly resistant to glyphosate bad actors like Salmonella and Clostridium botulinum, they step in and take over.
Which is terrifying. But to really understand how to heal this internal injury, we first have to understand the machinery that was broken. Like, how exactly does gut damage translate to you, the listener, waking up feeling totally exhausted every day?
It all comes down to the gut mitochondria axis.
Okay, the power grid.
Right. Your gut microbes are the signalers, and your mitochondria are the engines inside your cells.
Let me try an analogy here. If my body's an electric car, my gut microbiome is the battery terminal, and the mitochondria are the engines.
I love that, yeah.
And they communicate using a very specific currency, right? Butyrate.
Butyrate. It's a short-chain fatty acid produced by keystone bacteria like Fictellobacterium prosnitzi.
That is a mouthful.
It is, we'll just call it F. prosnitzi. But this butyrate is incredible. It provides 70% of the energy for your colon cells.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah, and it seals the gut wall, physically stopping leaky gut. But more importantly, it signals the PGC1 alpha pathway.
Okay, what does that pathway do?
It's the signal that tells your body to build new mitochondria. It triggers them to enter a state called fusion, which is basically energy-producing mode.
So if my gut is healthy, I'm producing butyrate, my cells are in fusion, and my engines are humming.
Precisely. But here is how glyphosate shuts the whole grid down. Biochemically, glyphosate acts as a glycine analog.
An analog, like a molecular mimic.
Exactly. Glycine is an essential amino acid your body needs. Glyphosate looks so similar to glycine that your body gets confused and mistakenly builds the herbicide directly into your proteins.
Oh, man. So going back to the car analogy, glyphosate is basically sugar in the gas tank. It shuts the whole grid down into a brownout.
It's exactly a brownout. This chemical mimicry causes up to a 40% drop in cellular ATP, which is your raw energy.
40%.
Yes, and it forces your mitochondria out of that healthy fusion state and into fission.
Fission being like survival mode.
Right. They literally fragment and break apart to try and survive the chemical assault. And that is exactly why people experience such severe systemic fatigue, brain fog, and chronic inflammation. It is a literal physical loss of cellular power.
That is wild. So you're walking around with engines that are quite literally broken and fragmented.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we treat this at home? Now that we understand the injury, We apply the RISE framework. This is a self-directed, structured methodology for microbiome regeneration.
The marathon.
Right, so R stands for remove and reset. You have to stop the insult.
You cannot heal while you're still taking damage.
So you eliminate the processed sugars, the industrial seed oils, and the non-organic foods. But there's a crucial tip here, right, about binders.
Yes. Just stopping the exposure isn't enough. You have to use binders like humic acid, fulvic acid, or zeolite.
And what do those actually do in the gut?
They physically track the residual toxins in your digestive tract. They act like a sponge so that your liver doesn't just keep endlessly reabsorbing the glyphosate.
So you trap it and flush it out.
Right.
Okay, so that's R. Then we move to I, which is investigate and identify. You need to gather actual data.
You can't just guess what's going on in there.
Right, so using something like a GI map stool test, it uses qPCR tech to find exactly what bacteria are missing and what pathogens have taken over.
And you also need to investigate your environment for things like home mold, which can totally stall your recovery.
Okay, so we've removed the toxins and investigated the damage. Now, S, supplement and support. This is where we fix that glycine mimicry problem, right?
Yes, through glycine saturation.
Saturation, so just flooding the body with the good stuff.
Exactly. You take 3 to 5 grams of pure glycine daily because it's a game of musical chairs. If you flood your system with the real amino acid, it literally crowds out the glyphosate analog. Your body will use the real glycine to rebuild instead of the toxin.
That makes so much sense. And then we have the 3 ferment rule.
This is crucial for replacing those highly sensitive lactobacillus strains that the herbicide wiped out.
So you need to eat 3 distinct fermented foods every single day, like kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi.
Every day, yeah. And you pair that with spore-based bacillus probiotics.
Spore-based. Why spores specifically?
Because standard probiotics often get completely destroyed by your stomach acid. Spore-based strains have a tough outer coating that lets them survive the stomach, reach the gut intact, and actively recondition the environment.
They're like little armored trucks.
Exactly.
Okay, so finally, E in the RISE protocol, eat and excel.
This is the long-term lifestyle shift.
You want to aim for 30 or more different plant types per week to build up microbial diversity. But there's a really important rule here, the pairing rule.
Oh, the pairing rule is so elegant.
Yeah, if you are drastically increasing your plant intake, you're going to be eating high oxalate plants like spinach or beets.
Yeah.
And you have to pair them with high calcium foods like cheese or yogurt.
Right, because oxalates are natural plant defense compounds. If they reach your kidneys, they form painful crystals. But if you eat them with calcium, the two minerals chemically bind together right there in the gut.
So they bind in the gut, and you safely excrete them before they ever reach the kidneys.
It's biohacking at its finest.
And then there's the lifestyle piece, doing a 16.8 pulsed fasting window, so fasting for 16 hours and eating in an 8-hour window.
Fasting is incredible because it triggers mitophagy.
Autophagy.
Yeah, it's a process where your cells actively seek out and clear away those damaged, fragmented mitochondria. It creates a clean slate. Combine that with 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and your body can finally rebuild.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though, the timeline. If a listener starts eating 30 plants, fasting, and taking glycine today, when do they actually feel better?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's vital to manage expectations. The initial microbial shift actually happens super fast, in just 2 to 3 days.
Oh, wow. That is fast.
But you have to warn people about the Herxheimer reaction.
The healing crisis.
Yes. Around days 3 to 7, as you starve out the bad pathogens, they die off and release endotoxins. You might feel temporary, severe fatigue or headaches.
So you might feel worse before you feel better?
You probably will. Do not quit. It means it's working. Full mitochondrial biogenesis actually building a new cellular power grid that takes 90 to 120 days.
120-day marathon.
It is a marathon, but the payoff is your life back.
So to wrap all this up, whether you are dealing with a kinetic dysfunction like a sprained ankle where you need that 48-hour sprint of rice, or you are fighting a compromised internal environment where you need the systemic marathon of rise, you now have the tools.
Independent, actionable tools.
Exactly. You don't need fancy equipment to ice an ankle correctly.
Yeah.
And you have the power to protect your cellular engines simply by changing what you buy at the grocery store and how you pair your foods.
Which is incredibly empowering. And you know, that leaves me with one final lingering idea to chew on. Well, That exact same pathway is also present in the bacteria and fungi of the soil that grows our entire world. So what if the environmental herbicides we use to control our external world are essentially terraforming our internal biology?
Oh, wow.
Like, are we unintentionally forcing human cellular evolution to adapt to a newly synthesized chemical landscape?
That is a wild thought. Terraforming our own biology from the inside out.
It is definitely something to think about the next time you walk down the produce aisle.
Absolutely. Well, you are the architect of your own recovery. Build wisely.